Teachers, what is something you don't want your students to know? I teach high school English, and I had this student, Devin, who was my worst nightmare. Never turned in homework, slept through class, failed every test. I wrote him off as lazy. Then one day, completely out of nowhere, he submitted this essay about immigration that made me cry. It was beautiful, personal, devastating. I called him after class and asked straight up, "Did you write this?" He looked me dead in the eye and said, "Yeah. Why, you think I'm too stupid?" I apologized and told him it was incredible. Then I asked the question that changed everything. "If you can write like this, why don't you ever do your homework?" He went quiet for a long time. Finally, he said his dad got deported 6 months ago. His mom was still in Mexico trying to get paperwork sorted. He was 17, living alone in their apartment, working construction jobs after school and on weekends just to keep the lights on. Rent was $950 a month. He made about $11 an hour when he could get shifts. The days he missed school, he was working double shifts because the landlord threatened eviction. The homework he never did, he got home at 9 p.m., ate whatever he could afford, then passed out. Some nights he didn't eat at all, just slept. He showed me his hands, covered in cuts and calluses from handling materials on job sites. He was 17 with the hands of a 40-year-old laborer. Then he said something that broke me. "I'm trying, miss. I'm really trying. But I don't know how much longer I can do this." His voice cracked and he looked away. I realized this kid wasn't failing because he didn't care. He was failing because he was surviving. I went home that night and couldn't sleep. I kept seeing his hands. Kept thinking about him working construction in the heat while his classmates worried about prom. I called my sister, who's a social worker, and asked what I could do. She said without legal guardianship, there wasn't much. The system was complicated. He could end up in foster care, which might be worse. So I made a decision that probably broke a dozen rules. The next week, I asked Devin if he wanted to be my teaching assistant, grading papers, organizing supplies, helping after school, $20 an hour, cash. He looked confused, said he didn't know anything about teaching. I told him I'd train him. He agreed because he needed the money. The job didn't exist. I just made up tasks and paid him from my own paycheck. Every Thursday, I handed him an envelope with $160 for 8 hours of work. He never knew the papers he graded were already graded. I just had him check them again. The supplies he organized were already organized. I'd mess them up before he came in. I had him help me create lesson plans by just sitting there while I talked through ideas. Sometimes I had him do actual homework at my desk and called it testing materials. For 2 years, I did this. I stopped buying coffee, stopped eating out, canceled my gym membership. I told myself it was temporary, just until his parents came back. But months turned into a year, then another year. There were hard days. Days when I saw Devin fall asleep at my desk while grading, and I'd just let him sleep. Days when he'd show up with a black eye from a fight at a job site, and I'd send him home early, still paid. Days when he'd apologize for being useless as an assistant, and I'd tell him he was the best help I ever had. One afternoon, he told me he'd saved enough to bring his mom back. He cried when he said it, said he couldn't have done it without this job. I had to turn away because I was crying too. His mom came back 3 months later. Devin started doing his actual homework again. His grades went from failing to straight B's, then A's. He graduated with honors. I sat in the audience and watched him walk across that stage in his cap and gown, and I thought about those hands, those calluses, everything he'd survived. Last month, he sent me a photo of his college acceptance letter with a full scholarship. The message said, "Thanks for believing I wasn't lazy. I still haven't told him the truth."